Hello, I'm Helen Bradley. Welcome to this video tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to have a look at how Lightroom manages your photos. One question I'm often asked about Lightroom is, where does Lightroom put my photos? Well, the short answer is that Lightroom doesn't actually store a copy of your photos. When you're working in the library module, or indeed any module in Lightroom, what you're seeing here is just a series of links to the actual photos on your computer. So this image here is in a folder on my computer. It's not hidden away in a separate location that Lightroom takes care of. Which means that if I delete this photo from the disk that it's on, the drive that it's on my computer, it's going to disappear permanently. It's not as if Lightroom stores a spare copy for me, or that Lightroom makes its own copy when I import images. And that's not just a case of how I deal with my photos in Lightroom, it's that Lightroom doesn't do that. Even if you wanted it to, it's not designed to do that. So let's look and see what our options are and how Lightroom works when we import photos into it. I'm going to click on the import button here, and I have a disk in my computer. Well, it's not showing up here, so I'm just going to make it show up again. So this is a camera card, and on this camera card are a series of photos. This is a card that I've just taken out of my camera and put into my computer. As soon as I've finished bringing these photos in, I'm going to remove it. So it's not going to be on my computer any longer. So Lightroom only gives me two options here. I can copy as DNG, or I can choose copy. Add and move aren't available. Copy as DNG will copy the photos, and if they are in a raw format such as PEF or RAW or NEF or whatever it is that your camera shoots, you can copy them and convert them to DNG as you copy. Copy just means take a copy of them. Now Lightroom doesn't give you the move option for images that are stored on a removable drive such as your camera card. The reason for this is that Lightroom doesn't delete files from camera cards. You have to do that yourself. And of course the move process means that you would pick them up from here, delete them and move them to another location. It's not possible for Lightroom to do that with a disk that is going to be removed. Likewise, Lightroom can't add them, because add just means leave the files where they are, but make a note of where they are in the Lightroom catalog. Well, where they are is about to be removed. This is a removable card. It goes back into a camera. So Lightroom can't possibly point to these images because they're not going to be there in a few minutes' time. So we have copy as DNG and copy as our options. Let's go and copy a couple of these files. I'm going to uncheck everything, and I'm just going to check two of these files. Now I have a location selected here that the images are going into. It's a location on my C drive, and it's called sample photos. So we're just going to use that. I'm going to click import. These two photos are now imported. What Lightroom has done is it has picked up the images from my camera card and it has placed them in a folder on my disk. And at the same time it has included in its catalog details about these two images so that it knows what they look like and it knows where they are. If I right click this image, I can click show in folder, and this will take me to the folder on my disk where I can see these photos. If I choose go to folder in library, I'll go to the folder in my Lightroom library where those images are located. Let's click that option. Well, you see that these two images have joined another three photos that Lightroom knows about in the folder called sample photos. Lightroom has just stored details about these photos. It knows the name of the photos, it knows how big they are, it has a little thumbnail view of them, but that's all. It doesn't store the actual physical photos. They are never stored inside Lightroom. Let's go and see this folder on disk because it will be a little enlightening. Let's right click and choose Show in Explorer. Windows Explorer opens and there's the folder that we were looking at. But you can see that there's a lot more in this folder than just those 5 images that Lightroom knows about. That's because images never appear inside Lightroom unless we say we want Lightroom to manage them. And by managing we mean just let Lightroom know that those images are there if we want to work with them. Now let's look at one of these images. Here is the image. I'm just going to click on it because I want to see what its name is. Okay, so it's 4351. So let's go here and have a look at 4351. Here's 4351. I'm going to delete it. This is the last thing you should ever do, but I want to show you something important. Let's close this dialog. Now when I click on this image, look and see what Lightroom is telling me. The photo is missing. It has been removed from the folder on my disk and Lightroom is warning me it can't find it. This image, fine, it's still there, so is this one and this one and this one, but because I deleted this photo, it is gone forever from my disk. I can't get it back. Lightroom does not have a copy of it stored. Now there is a new setting in Lightroom 5 that will help you out in the situation where you want to be able to work on a photo even if that image is not available to you. For example, it's on an external drive. Let's go back to the import dialog. And here's our SD card. I'm just going to find a couple of photos to import, so I'm going to uncheck everything and I'm just going to click on a couple of photos that I want to import into Lightroom. This time I'm going to select a setting that's new in Lightroom 5 and it's Build Smart Previews. Smart Previews let you work on photos even if the original is no longer available, but it does that with some caveats. So I'm just going to click to import these photos. This time, in addition to a notice that we've got the original file, we're also seeing that there is a smart preview available for that file. Let's see what happens if we delete this photo from our disk. Let's go to Windows Explorer. The image number is 4283. Here it is. I'm going to delete it. And let's go back to Lightroom. Here it's got a little indicator here telling us that there is a smart preview for this image, and you can see over here that we're seeing smart preview as well as a tooltip which says that the original is offline but the photo can still be edited. So what we have here is a small size version of the photo because the original is not available to us, but we can edit it. So we can take this photo to the Develop module and edit it. For example, I can crop it. And let's go back to the Library module. And let's go back to this folder of images that we were working with, this set of images here. This one is a different situation. We deleted this photo from our disk, but there was no smart preview. So let's see what happens when we take this photo to the Develop module. Well, we can see it here, but look, all the Develop options are unavailable to us. We can't develop this photo because it's just not available. The one that has a smart preview for it, we can develop, at least to some extent. But we can't get back the large size original right now because it has been deleted from our disk. Lightroom does not store a full size version of the image. It just stores a slightly bigger version than it did of this image, and it does that because it lets us be able to edit the photo even if the original is not available. But nothing is going to get this original back. It has been deleted from disk, so I won't be able to get the original back. Lightroom does not store an extra copy of it for me. So you might be wondering, what's the purpose of a smart preview? Well, a smart preview is handy if I was saving my photos onto a removable drive such as an external hard drive. I could store my photos on that, but I could still be able to access and edit the photos even if that drive were removed from the computer, because Smart Previews will allow me to do that. So I often use that when I'm traveling. I have my Lightroom catalog with me, but not my photos. But because I have Smart Previews of them, I can look at my photos, I can work with them, I can develop them, and I can get my originals back when I plug my external hard drive back into my computer when I get home. But of course that presumes that I've made Smart Previews and that I've stored the originals on a drive and I haven't deleted them. You really need to be clear in your own mind that Lightroom is not storing a copy of your photos. It can't. It's just not designed like that. So you have to make sure that the originals on your disk are kept secure, because Lightroom is not a sort of backup system. It's not going to bail you out. If we delete these photos from disk, they're gone forever. Now sometimes you might encounter the issue where you move photos and Lightroom can't find them. Let's go and work, well, let's have a look at this photo. It's 4503. Let's go to it on our disk. Here it is in Windows Explorer. Here's the image here. So I'm going to move it to a subfolder, but I'm not telling Lightroom I'm doing that. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to make a new folder. And I'm going to call this Temp. It's just going to be a temporary folder. And now I'm going to go and find that photo. Well, I can find it more easily if I just right click on it here inside Lightroom, Show in Explorer. Here it is here. So I'm going to move it. I'm picking it up and moving it to Temp. So it is no longer in the Sample Photos folder. It's in a folder called Temp, which is inside Sample Photos. But as far as Lightroom's concerned, it's going to report it missing. Here we are back in Lightroom. Let's click on the image. As we thought, the photo's missing. It isn't in Sample Photos. If I try and open this in the Develop module, Lightroom's saying, I can't find this photo. You can't work on it. You don't have a Smart Preview for it. It's gone somewhere. It might have been deleted. It might have been moved. Who knows? Lightroom doesn't know, because Lightroom didn't do that. It wasn't involved in the moving process. And as far as it's concerned, the image is gone. Let's go back to the library. If this happens to you and if you move the photo, you can get the photo back. I'm going to click here on this exclamation mark, and Lightroom's confirming the file can't be used because the original's gone. Would I like to locate it? Well, yes, I would, because I think I know where it is. So I'll click Locate. And Lightroom takes me to where the photo was last seen. And it's giving me a chance to go and find that photo. Well, I know it's in here. So let's click on this and tell Lightroom, hello, I just found the photo. And when you're doing that, if you've moved files and not told Lightroom, it's a really good idea to select this option, Find Nearby Missing Photos, because oftentimes you'll move not just one photo, but a whole lot of them. And while it's best not to do that outside of Lightroom, sometimes you just do that and forget, and then Lightroom can't find them. Well, if you've moved a whole heap of them, if you check this box, Lightroom will be aware that maybe there are some more images around here that also belong elsewhere in its catalog, and it'll just fix the catalog up as you do that. We only have one photo in this case, so I'm just going to click Select. And Lightroom goes, oh, okay, interesting. Here is the folder called Temp. So it's actually created a folder called Temp inside the Lightroom catalog, and it has taken the photo from Sample Photos and put it into Temp. Now I can prove that because here in the library we have Show Photos and subfolders. So when I'm looking at the Sample Photos folder, I'm seeing everything in Sample Photos and in Temp. But let's just turn that option off. So now I only see the photos in Sample Photos. Well, there are only 6 photos here that Lightroom knows about in the folder called Sample Photos, but there's one in a subfolder called Temp below Sample Photos. So if you've just moved photos, you're able to tell Lightroom where they have gone to, so you can build your catalog back up. But if you're going to be moving photos on disk, it's wise if you do it inside Lightroom, not using Windows Explorer. Let's do that now. Let's take this photo and let's put it in Temp. Well, if I just drag on the middle of this photo and drop it into Temp, look what happens. The photo is deleted from sample photos because that's what moving is. It's been removed from sample photos and now it's in Temp. Now you may be asking yourself if you can copy photos inside Lightroom, and the answer is no. You can move them from one folder to the next, but you can't make a duplicate of them. Lightroom doesn't have that feature available. I hope that this video has helped you understand a little bit more about how Lightroom manages photos and the fact that Lightroom is not storing a copy of your photos for you, so you can't rely on it, for example, as a backup for your original files, because it just doesn't work that way. I'm Helen Bradley. Thank you for joining me for this video tutorial. Look out for more videos here on my YouTube channel, and consider subscribing to my channel and you'll be alerted when new videos are released. And visit my website at projectwoman.com, where you'll find more tips, tricks and tutorials on a range of applications, including Photoshop, Lightroom, Illustrator and a whole lot more.